Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanat Mirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurumina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sahitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dalati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagada Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijarasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Radha Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatete Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo 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 Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Vacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Guruji. So, when we are sick, what do we do? Go to the doctor? Take rest, go to the doctor. Huh?
Medicine.
Take some medicine. So to go to the doctor, what does that require? Effort. Effort alone will get us in to see the doctor?
Appointment.
What else?
Transportation.
So if you get there,
And you have the right doctor.
you have to have the right doctor. And what is the doctor going to ask of you? What are the symptoms? Before that?
Where are you coming?
Before that?
Do you have the money to pay the bill of insurance?
Money! I have money! You have money to pay. Right? And are the doctors cheap or expensive? Expensive. Right? So we have to make the effort, we have to make the appointment, we have to get there. If we're really sick and doctor says, come tomorrow at 6 a.m., what time do we show up?
5:30.
5:30. Whatever it takes, right? And then the questions begin. Then what happens? After we've validated, okay, I have payment, I made the appointment, then what happens?
symptoms. Why are you here?
Why are you here? We find out. And then what?
Post-diagnosis, the medication.
And the medication, the treatment. Is treatment fun and enjoyable? Why? Because what's required in the treatment?
Discipline.
Discipline. Some austerity. Right? And so why do we endure all of that?
To get better.
To get better. Right? To be cured. And if the disease is very significant, what happens to everything else? What's the extent of austerity required? More? More money?
High priority.
More money?
Yeah.
More medicines?
Another everything.
More restrictions? More visits to the doctor? Follow-up, specialists, testing? Oh, that's right. So the severity of the disease, the more, but are we willing to do it?
You don't have a choice.
Oh, we don't have choice. Even better. Right? We don't have choice because we want purity of the disease of the body. Right? So like that, Srila Prabhupada explains that even in spiritual life there's austerity. And who is the beneficiary of that austerity? We are. And the greater the austerity we know, then the greater the purification. And if we look inside our hearts, we can decide how much purification we need. A little bit or lots? So today is the most glorious and wonderful Nirjala Ekadashi. Sometimes you lament, oh, Nirjala's coming. You know, oh, this Ekadashi's coming. But actually, that austerity that we endure, it is for our greatest of benefit. Because we gain purification, cleansing of the diseased condition in the heart. And so we know any rectification requires some austerity. So to rectify and bring the heart back to its original state, when the body is sick, our goal is to bring it back to its original state. So similarly, the soul, having traversed the material world, has acquired this contamination. And so these austerities like Nirjala Ekadashi, we should embrace and understand, yes, it's difficult. Yes, it takes some discipline. It takes some mental willpower. Actually, it takes more willpower than anything. Actually, the body can tolerate many things, but the mind cannot. You know, we convince ourselves, oh, I need this, I need that. But actually, the body is quite durable, as by the design of the supreme engineer, Krishna. But when we put our mind to enduring this austerity, we are the great, great beneficiary of it. And we can help rectify the heart. See, when the body is ailing, we immediately feel the need to rectify it. Because we are attached to the body. But when the soul is ailing, covered by this material conditioning, how eager are we? Not so much. So, we don't voluntarily or anxiously take on this austerity. So the presence of these types of opportunities are actually our greatest benefit, because without them we wouldn't do it. How many of us would do Nirjala just on a random day in June? We wouldn't do it. Right? So these austerities are very, very beneficial for us and very empowering. And we should know whatever difficulties we face, the benefit is far, far superior. And so that way we can conquer the mind's doubts, the mind's dictations. Oh, it's too much, you can't do it, this, that, and the other. The mind will say, no. I've listened to you, mind, enough, and this is why I'm in this position. And now it's time to purify. So the austerity is there. But the austerity doesn't end, tomorrow, 5:50 a.m., 5:55 a.m. if you're in Eastern time. Because the disease is not gone. But it is significantly reduced each time we endure some austerity. Srila Prabhupada says that we should take some austerity, rising early in the morning, chanting our rounds, remaining disciplined in abstaining from different foodstuffs, different activities, intoxication, different sense gratification. That's a little bit of austerity. But actually in Krishna consciousness we have no austerity. Because what do we get to do? Douse ourselves in Krishna bliss with great prasadam, holy names, singing, dancing, enjoying. This time of year, so sweet. Right? We have for Rath Yatra festival coming. We have Rath Yatra picnic starting next week, where we get to have a picnic just to enjoy with Krishna. And then we have Pushpa Abhishek, Lord Jagannath. Then we have Abhishek Snan Yatra coming. Then we have actual Rath Yatra day. Then right after that, Balaram Jayanti is coming. Then Krishna Janmashtami. Then Radha Ashtami. So much. Then we get a little breath. And then all of Kartik Mas. So like this, within all of this, a little austerity, a fasting here, a fasting there. But actually, it's a constant celebration of joyous occasions. And so we should relish the great fortune we have to have come in contact with Srila Prabhupada. Because if we don't take to a little bit of austerity and discipline ourselves, just like in our own health, if we don't take some discipline to ourselves, putting on a cap and a jacket when it's cold, or eating healthy foodstuffs, or whatever it is, we know the body becomes weak. So, similarly, our devotion becomes weakened also if we don't apply a little bit of austerity to it. So we must be disciplined. And Nirjala Ekadashi is a chance for us to, make some great steps forward. So we should embrace Nirjala. We should embrace Ekadashi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he just begged his mother to do one thing. And what was that? Maybe you know? He begged his mother, just follow and observe Ekadashi. So you can see how important it is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asking his own mother, please observe Ekadashi. That's a very wonderful opportunity. And by successfully completing Nirjala Ekadashi, whatever, unintentional mistakes we make during the year of observing Ekadashi, they become nullified and perfected by the observance of this Ekadashi. So we get great fortune. And, Nirjala is a great opportunity. But we must follow it, properly. One time, one devotee said that, yes, I'm doing Nirjala. I am eating everything, but I'm just not taking water. I'm not taking water. So that is a form of Nirjala, but we're taking a little bit more higher austerity. But of course, we need to be practical with the body. But if we pray to Gauranga Mahaprabhu and we follow the process of works, so that is austerity. So chapter 15, we are discussing, Krishna is telling us the material world is something we should detach from. Sometimes they wonder why. And then we start to realize, because there's so much better out there in the spiritual realm. And Krishna began to speak about how the soul transmigrates to so many different bodies and experiences different forms in the material world. And how the foolish cannot see this, but that the spiritualist can. So it takes a level of, pursuit of self-realization to see how Krishna has facilitated his material world. But now Krishna is speaking in these verses that we'll discuss, how one who actually isn't even on the path of spiritual self-realization can see the presence of Krishna everywhere. And the conclusion of seeing Krishna's presence everywhere is one. And what is that conclusion? What is the only logical conclusion if we see that Krishna is present everywhere? Surrender to him. Because in reality, we are fully surrendered to Krishna. whether we know it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not. In the last verse, Krishna said, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. Are we surrendered to the sun? What happens if the sun doesn't rise tomorrow? Boys, can you live without the sun? What kind of foodstuffs we can grow without the sun?
Nothing.
Not one grain of rice can grow without sunlight through the process of photosynthesis and all these different processes. These foodstuffs grow. You can plant the fields, you can water the fields, you can fertilize them, but without sunlight, done. Right? What kind of life we can experience, we talk about going off the grid. In this world, we can't even imagine. But what happens? How would we charge our cell phones without the power of the sun? Where does all the power come from that we are utilizing? All the fossil fuels, it ultimately comes for granted. We just take it for granted. And all the scientists in the world, none of them can even realize where the sun is coming from. How can the sun emit so much power and energy that the scientists will tell you that the sun emits more energy in 1 second than all of mankind is consumed in its whole existence. In 1 second. We're proud of our big 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatt, 5 gigawatt power plants. But this sun, and is the sun running out of fuel?
No.
Who can create such a thing? What machine has man made that doesn't require refueling? Nothing. Everything. It needs refueling. But the sun is being fueled by the Supreme Unlimited. Krishna told us that. It talks about fire. What can you make in the factories that don't need fire? We go to the stores, and because of supply chain disruptions throughout the world, we see empty store shelves. And we think, oh, what are we going to do? How dependent we are on the things in the store shelves. But without fire, where all that would come from? So are we not actually fully surrendered to Krishna already? But we're just not acknowledging. Just as much as a child who's 1 month old. Child is fully surrendered to mother and father. If child wants to eat, can it go into the kitchen and make himself a meal?
No.
If a child needs a bath, can it give itself a bath? If it wants to move 2 feet this direction, can it move? It's fully surrendered to mother and father. Fully dependent. Well, actually, as we grow, we feel independence. I'm now my own. I can walk my own stuff. I can go wherever I want. Then we get a little bit older. Oh, now I can go outside of the house without anybody watching me. I just have to tell mother where I'm going. Then as we get a little bit older, we can go further and further. But actually, we're not breaking our dependence. We may break our dependence on the home, but all along the way, we are fully dependent on Krishna. So this is what Krishna is showing to us with startling clarity. So let's read the 13th verse. We'll see more ways in which we are dependent on the Supreme Lord. Yeah, read.
Good. I did the purport.
I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Purport. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said there that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and any other thing. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet, just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets, which are floating in the air, are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word Rasamaka is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon.
So Krishna says, I enter into each planet and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of all life to all vegetables. So again, Krishna is showing to us how we can observe his presence through observation of things around us. You know, we talk about automation. Right? The big thing now is these driverless cars. Right? So automated vehicles. But is the car truly self-driving? What's behind all the technology in the car to make it drive?
The programming behind it.
Yeah. Very smart engineers who can program the vehicle. Does the car just hop off the assembly line and just start driving?
You wish.
And what happens when that self-driving car veers off the road and hits a tree? Who do we blame? The car? Huh? No, it's driverless. So who do we blame?
Technology.
Huh? Who?
The company.
The company. But who's the company? People.
People.
The engineers. Why you designed it this way? This driverless car drove off the road. But the engineer said, no, it's a driverless car. I didn't do anything. So we said, come on, don't be foolish. So you go into a factory and you see all these robots and things moving around and manufacturing things. The child might think, wow, that's amazing. It's all happening automatically. the Father knows. What? No. It's a huge control room of people who are programming, testing, troubleshooting, maintaining all of this that you see nobody there, all this automation. There is brains behind it. There's engineering behind it. So if a simple car to move on the freeway needs so much brain power, have they made a truly driverless car yet? Boys, do we have a driverless car yet? They're trying. And how much money has been spent? Billions of dollars. And thousands and tens of thousands of the smartest engineers. And still is developing, but not to the point that you're willing to put yourself in the back seat of a driverless car. That's the test, right? How good it is. So, you're not willing to put yourself in the back seat of a driverless car? Because it's not yet done properly. But why are we willing to ride on this planet without any fear? Do we wake up one day in fear? What if the planet starts going off its course? Anybody woke up this morning worried about that? No? Anybody worries about what if the planet starts spinning really, really fast, out of control? Anybody has that worry? Again, why we take all this for granted. But if it takes so much mind power to move one car on the freeway, what does it take to move these giant masses of these planets in space? It takes some supreme engineering power. It doesn't happen just by itself. The movement of these planets is so precise, so exacting, that you know for the next 1,000 years when every eclipse will happen. At which time and date the sun, moon, and planets will be aligned in such a way that there's an eclipse. You go to this website called Time and Date. It can tell you, we were just planning one festival. They need to know what time is the sun going to set at the end of August. So you go to this website, you put in the location and the date, and it'll tell you exactly on that date what time the sun will rise, what time the sun will set, when it's dusk, all these things exact. How do they know? Are these like some great fortune teller? How do they know? In the future, when the sun is going to rise? Huh? Calculated based on the extreme precision by which these planets move. They don't move. What happens if our planet moves just a few feet away from the sun?
Chaos.
What happens if our planet moves just a few feet closer to the sun?
Bigger chaos.
Anybody wonder what happens if the Earth spins a little bit faster one day, a little bit slower the next day? What happened to our concept of time? So these things are moving in extreme precision. We're trying to get a car to move within the parameters of one lane, even plus or minus, okay, a little bit faster, a little bit slower, no problem. But keep within relative order. And that in itself is virtually impossible for us to do. But someone is programming this planets to move with such precision that thousands of years later, it doesn't vary even a fraction. Why? Because Krishna has entered and is doing it. He is the supreme engineer. Nothing we see in this world happens automatically. Everything, there's somebody behind it. All the automation, how can there not be somebody behind all these things that are happening in space? So Krishna just told us he is the source of power of the sun that never needs to be refueled. He's refueling it. He is also entering into each of these planets and they stay in orbit. That is the Supreme Lord. So by just a basic analysis, we can understand the presence of the Supreme Lord, and we can also appreciate how great he is. Because what is the main reason why we remain attached to the material world? Who's God? Who's Krishna? I am my own person. I am my own doer. But who is God? Such a supreme person that without even his direct effort, he can orchestrate the movement of a giant planet. Not just one planet, but millions of planets. Not just in one universe, but in millions of universes. And we, one car on one road, are still working, trying to figure it out. So we have some relative understanding. And with faith in that, the only logical conclusion, surrender. So we can see Krishna's presence in the sun, in the fire, in the earth. But in the next verse, Krishna goes even further. He says, I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities. And I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuffs. So suppose you could grow foodstuffs without sunlight. But you have to put the food into the body. Then what has to happen? And what does actual digestion mean? Absorb the nutrients. To do what? Energy. We feel the lacking of nutrients today. We get a little bit lethargic, tired. Right? So we appreciate the importance of foods on days like this when we are fasting. But we need to absorb the nutrients, digest the foods, so that we can fuel the body. And what happens if we don't, when that digestion is not working, what happens to our energy?
Negatively impacted.
So what are those digestive fire, that enzymes? Where is it? What is that? Huh?
What is it?
Yeah, what is it? According to this verse.
Fire.
Who is that fire?
Krishna.
Krishna himself.
Krishna. Those digestive enzymes in the stomachs, you'll not find anywhere in nature. Doesn't exist. Krishna said, I am the fire of digestion in the bodies. Even the ability to digest foodstuffs. We are fully dependent on Krishna. So now the question is, are we surrendered to the Supreme Lord? Are we surrendered to Krishna? Huh?
We should be. Should
We are. We just don't feel it.
I didn't ask should we be or not. I said, are we?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Unequivocally,
Yes.
Yes.
we are surrendered to Krishna. There is no doubt. Now the next question is,
Do we realize
are we acknowledging this? Are we acknowledging that? Okay. When the child is living in a home, fully dependent on the mother and father, and then says, who are you to tell me what to do? We know that child is rebellious. When we try to live in this world and tell Krishna, who are you to tell me what to do? There's no difference. Because we are fully dependent on Krishna for our existence. So anyone with just the least little bit of introspection, analysis, logical thinking can quickly see this is all orchestrated by Krishna. if one is not going to allot Krishna the responsibility, at least they can allot, it's not due to me. Some higher power is arranging this. At least to that point is the easy. For me to suggest that I can live without acknowledging some higher power in my life is as foolish as us living in somebody's house and thinking, I don't need them. So we cannot go through life thinking that I don't have to at least acknowledge the higher. And when we start to find, okay, then who is that higher power? Our Shastra gives us very clear indication, and of course Krishna here could not be any more clear. And so Krishna has gone from the very big fire, sun, planets, down to the fire in our belly. And now in the next verse, Krishna is going to say, I've even entered into the hearts of all living beings. And from that, Mata, Shmitir, and Jnanam, Apohanam. I am the source of all this remembering, forgetfulness, and intelligence. So Krishna is going to show how even if we want to enjoy the material world, it happens only by the mercy of Krishna. So that is what we'll discuss starting in the 15th chapter. Any comments or questions on today's verse?
So we are not able to realize this presence because of our false ego.
Don't tell me that I'm dependent on somebody else. That's false ego. We know we are fully dependent. I put food into the stomach, but there's nothing else I can do to fuel the body. I'm dependent on the functionings of this body to be fueled accordingly. If it doesn't work, there's nothing I can do to fix it. I'm dependent at least on a doctor to try to remedy it. Every breath I take, I'm dependent on nature to provide oxygen. Every breath I take. But when I take that breath, I'm dependent on a whole other system of nature to pull that oxygen into the bloodstream and to fuel the cells to perform so many different activities. So every step I take, I realize, if I'm really interested, I'm dependent on something else, beyond my control. And when I really analyze, that everything in my whole existence, I'm dependent on something else. Nothing I can do on my own. If I want to move my hand like this, I'm dependent on the brain properly sending the signals to move the hand. Ask somebody who's paralyzed. Do they have desire to move their hand? Of course. But why is it not happening? Because the body's not working. So I am dependent on this body to work in a certain way to achieve my desired goals. So everywhere I look, left, right, center, up and down, I'm dependent.
But the people who may not believe, they say that it's all science. Basically, all these are the science behind each and every action, whatever you're talking about, whether it's digestion, whether it is anything. So how do they?
What is science? Science is a fact-based explanation of some phenomena. Right? That is science. So science likes to prove out some phenomena through evidence. Right? So science wants to say that this universe came from Big Bang. Okay? What is the fact-based evidence of that? So they don't call Big Bang as fact, they call Big Bang as a theory. What does theory mean?
Speculation.
It's a guess. A theory is a guess. A law is observable reality. Right? Gravity is not a theory, it's a law. Because we can observe gravity. So, how this universe came into creation, science can only offer a theory. Science cannot offer how the body functions. Every year, in all the cells in our body, they discover new components of that machinery. But they cannot answer who created these components. That they cannot answer. They can, in the laboratory, combine hydrogen and oxygen and make water. But where the hydrogen and oxygen is coming from, that they cannot answer. So, science can give some explanations to things, but we also are science, fully science, because it is fact-based explanations. So Srila Prabhupada called his book Science of Self-Realization, because it is a science. We are not opposed to science at all. But don't theorize and expect me to mold my life based on a theory, based on a guess. I want to mold my life based on facts, hard facts. So, this is the reality, and we have very practical understanding. You know, all of science can put all of their mind together, and they cannot create, and I would like to say in our seminars, even one single mosquito that can reproduce. Nature creates living entities that the cow eats grass and out comes milk. Manufacture some mechanism that can do that. Manufacture a mechanism that you put a dull, scentless seed into the ground and out comes the brightest, most beautiful rose with a fragrance you cannot match anywhere else. Who has created that machinery? Random? We don't go to Target or to the stores and think, oh, all these things are randomly created. We know there is a manufacturer. There is intelligence behind all those things on the shelves. And when they're not on the shelves, we know the manufacturer has not supplied them. But we think all the things supplied in nature are random? How it can be? It cannot be. It's not. It's not. So that is the purpose. That's how we can answer in many other ways. Srila Prabhupada was the best at debunking these ideas. It all ultimately boils down to false ego. I don't want to acknowledge that I am limited. But everything I'm being slapped left and right every day, being told I am not the doer. If we had control, why we would ever fail? Who chooses to fail? All we can do is try to learn from it. But we can't control it. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. I think basically people don't even want to know that. I think it's just like some things, you take it for granted and you just kind of move around your life doing
Refuse to
that.
acknowledge.
Like for example, death is a reality, we know it. We know we cannot control it. But nobody's willing to question and try to find the higher truth kind of thing.
I remember when my younger son was young and something wasn't happening he didn't want to happen. What he would do, he would run and bury his head in the sofa. And I would tell him, Arjun, that's not going to make it go away. You not seeing it isn't going to make it go away. But that was his childish reaction. Yeah. What does the ostrich do when danger comes?
He buries his head in the sand.
Buries his head in the sand. And what happens to the ostrich? Done. No nirjala. Done. So burying our heads in the sand, saying, I don't want to know, isn't going to help us. In fact, it's only going to lead to our destruction. But you're right. People say, don't tell me. I don't want to know all this. Why you don't want to know? You can experience even a higher truth. They're worried that you're going to rain on my parade. No, we're not going to rain on your parade. We're going to elevate your parade. Come to Lord Jagannath's parade. That is real enjoyment, real bliss and happiness. What you're searching for here and you're getting like some water in the desert. Yes, you can look for water in the desert and you'll find some water, no doubt. But why search in the desert? There's an ocean just a few miles that way. Go get old water from the ocean. That is all we're saying. We're telling them, the sense materialists, stop looking for happiness here. Look for happiness somewhere else. Happiness is what we all want. But don't look for it in the desert. The ocean is right here. But if we put our heads in the sand, we'll never find it. So yes, that's why we try to inspire through whatever means to overcome those obstacles. But ultimately it boils down to false ego. And that is where in the next verse Krishna is going to show that even our own desires to enjoy the material world, where they come from? Even to be separate from the Supreme Lord, we need the Supreme Lord. Huh? Even to try to run away from Him, we need Him. That is the ultimate, ego-shattering realization. And this is the actual reality. And through all this, Krishna isn't saying, okay, now that you're dependent on me, you all serve me and you suffer and I'll enjoy. Krishna is saying, no, I want to give you more. I'm already giving you everything in your existence, but I want to give you more. What is that more I want to give? Unending bliss and happiness. No more stress, fear, anxiety. Krishna wants to give even all of that. But we have to do our part and accept it. Because we keep telling Krishna, no, I don't want anything from you, even though we are taking everything from Him. So Krishna consciousness is not an option. It's a reality. We always are surrendered to Krishna. It's just whether we are conscious of it or not. Why we say Krishna consciousness? It's simply to become aware, conscious of the fact that Krishna is in our whole life.
And acknowledge.
That's the only question. Will we surrender our false ego and accept the reality? Or are we going to bury our heads in the sand? That's the question. It's black and white. Not a matter of opinion or choice. It's a matter of reality. And these are laws. These are not theories. This is not a theory. This is an absolute truth, absolute fact. Undebatable, unconquerable. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada
Ki Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda.
Ki Jai. Jai.